Tales of the supernatural in the old countryside. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, my village was a forgotten corner of the Mekong Delta, a place untouched by the flicker of electric lights. The land stretched wide, but homes were scarce, mere specks of thatch scattered across a vast wilderness. Dense jungles of towering trees and tangled vines smothered the earth, blotting out the sun year-round. Along the riverbanks, water coconuts, sour mangroves, and wild reeds wove a chaotic web, while inland, bamboo groves and thorny acacias stood like silent guardians. Ancient graves, swallowed by overgrowth, lay scattered, their origins lost to time. This was a realm where tigers and leopards roamed as freely as the wind, and the old saying, "Crocodiles lurk in the rivers, tigers stalk the shores," was born from places like this, where danger was ever present. Our village, though vast in land, was sparse in people. Homes stood miles apart, separated by fields of mud and bramble. Hosting a gathering meant trudging through the wild to summon neighbors. Such was the primal isolation of our world, where tales of spirits and demons were as common as the morning mist. The story I'm about to share, passed down by my grandmother, is one such tale, a chilling chronicle of the supernatural that gripped our village. To honor her, I'll tell it as if I were her, weaving her words with the weight of her fear and wonder, so you can feel the pulse of that haunted time. Near our village lay an old burial ground, the resting place of a wealthy Chinese landlord's family. They were meticulous about their ancestral rites, and in those lawless days of grave robbers and bandits, they fortified the site with potent charms and talismans. But war came, and the landlord's kin vanished, leaving the graveyard to decay. Reeds grew taller than a man, thorny bushes choked the paths, and venomous snakes, green vipers, cobras, and king snakes, slithered among the crumbling tombs. The place was a desolate ruin, steeped in an eerie stillness that whispered of forgotten secrets. It was here, in this forsaken necropolis, that the horrors began. One evening, a villager named Ong Tu, a wiry man hardened by toil, was herding his buffalo near the graveyard. The area was lush with grass and teeming with fish, a perfect spot for grazing and casting nets. Lost in the rhythm of fishing, he didn't notice the sun sinking until twilight cloaked the world. When he looked up, his buffalo were gone. He searched the undergrowth, calling their names, but found no trace. Thinking they'd wandered home, sated from grazing, he gathered his strings of fish and trudged back. But his pen was empty. Panic seized him. He and his wife, Ba Nam, lit torches and ventured into the night, their hearts heavy with dread. Those buffalo were their livelihood, their only wealth in a merciless world. They searched until midnight, their shouts swallowed by the darkness. Desperate, Ong Tu turned to his wife, his voice trembling. What if they strayed into the graveyard? Ba Nam's eyes widened, her face paling under the torchlight. That place? It's crawling with snakes and, worse, she whispered, her words trailing into unspoken fear. They both knew the stories, whispers of spirits lurking in the abandoned tombs, of shadows that moved without cause. Ong Tu paused, then said, "Let's fetch on Hai and Bak Ba. Bak Ba knows about these things." Bak Ba was the village's sage, a man versed in the old ways, with a knack for unraveling mysteries others feared. The couple roused on Hai and Bak Ba, and the group, torches in hand, ventured back to the graveyard. As they crossed its threshold, Bak Ba froze. In the distance, beneath an ancient tree's gnarled branches, a shadowy figure crouched, holding something to its mouth. The torchlight was too dim to reveal details, but the sight chilled him. "On Hai," he whispered, "did you see that?" On Hai squinted into the gloom. "Nothing out there, Bak." But Bak Ba wasn't convinced. He stepped closer, and a foul stench hit him, a sickening mix of blood, urine, and buffalo dung. Heart pounding, he quickened his pace, the others trailing behind. What they found stopped them cold, 2 buffalo, torn open, their entrails strewn across blood-soaked ground. The carnage was grotesque, beyond the work of any beast. Ong Tu and Ba Nam collapsed, their cries piercing the night. Those buffalo were their everything. On Hai, shaken but skeptical, turned to Bak Ba. "We've never had tigers or leopards this close. What did this?" Bak Ba's eyes lingered on the slaughter, his mind racing. "It's too late to move them now," he said grimly. "This place is crawling with snakes. Let's go back, gather help at dawn, and deal with this then." Ong Tu protested, his voice breaking. "What if the beasts come back and take what's left?" Bak Ba's gaze was steady, though his heart was not. Whatever did this is full for now. It won't return tonight. Reluctantly, they turned back, their torches casting trembling shadows. As they left, Bakba stole one last glance. Deep within the graveyard, two glowing red eyes, like burning coals, stared back, unblinking. That night, Bakba lay awake, haunted by what he'd seen. The village had grown from a handful of settlers who arrived decades ago to tame this wild land. Back then, the jungle was a realm of spirits and beasts, but its fertile soil and abundant wildlife promised a future. Among those pioneers was Trong Thuan, a man of mystery. Once a member of the Thien Dia Hoi, a secret society fleeing the Qing dynasty's wrath, he brought wealth and arcane skills, feng shui, divination, martial arts, and healing. To the villagers, he was a godsend, helping them choose land for homes and curing ailments with herbs. His fortune grew quickly, built on trade with China, exploiting the region's game and resources. But beneath his benevolence lay a darker truth. Years earlier, Trong Thuan had returned to China to retrieve his parents' remains, claiming filial piety. He built an elaborate graveyard, spanning nearly 10 acres, ringed with thorny plants, bamboo, wild pineapples, and cacti, to deter intruders. Within, he constructed crypts and watchtowers, a labyrinthine complex that took 3 years to complete. The villagers marveled at its grandeur, never suspecting its true purpose. But as the graveyard rose, so did the shadows that clung to it, and the village's peace began to fray. One rainy night in late June, two brothers, Dan and Chut, sons of Bahai Dan, ventured out with torches to catch frogs for their parents' meal. The drizzle soaked their clothes, but the boys pressed on, driven by duty. By midnight, their baskets were nearly full, and Chut, shivering and sleepy, tugged at his brother's sleeve. "Enough, on high. Let's go home. I'm cold." Dan, his heart softening, nodded. "All right, we'll catch a few more on the way for Tia's rice wine tomorrow." Their bond was strong, forged in the hardships of rural life, where every small act of kindness carried the weight of survival. As they neared the village, Dan heard frogs croaking from an abandoned garden. Handing his basket to Chut, he said, "Go on home. I'll grab a few more." Chut trudged back alone. Dan waded into the overgrowth, his torch casting a feeble glow. The frogs were plentiful, and he filled his basket, smiling at the thought of his father's approval. But then, a chill crept over him. The croaking was too loud, too rhythmic, unlike the usual post-rain chatter. Unease gnawed at him, and as he turned to leave, a cackling laugh echoed from the darkness, first childlike, then ancient and guttural. His blood ran cold. He knew what this was. Heart racing, Dan bolted, the laughter growing louder. As he neared the village's edge, he spotted a figure by a bamboo thicket, its arms unnaturally long. Thinking it was a neighbor, he screamed, "Help! There's a ghost!" But as he drew closer, his hope shattered. The figure's face was sickly green, its eyes blazing red, fangs protruding from a gaping maw. Before he could react, a claw seized his neck with a sickening crack. The creature tore his head from his body, tossing it aside like refuse, and dragged the lifeless corpse into the garden's depths. Chut, unaware of his brother's fate, reached home, strung up the frogs, and collapsed into bed, exhausted but content. The next morning, his parents, assuming the boys were sleeping off their late-night adventure, began preparing the frogs for lunch. But as they stepped outside, a commotion drew them to the village's edge. There, beneath a bamboo grove, lay a severed head, blood pooling around it. Bakba, then a young man hardened by years of wandering with his martial family, approached and turned the head over with a stick. Bahai Dan's scream pierced the air as she recognized her son. "Dan?" she cried, collapsing. Her husband, Ong Hai, sank to his knees, his spirit broken, staring at the head as if it were a nightmare he could not escape. Chut awoke to the village's clamor, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Curious, he stepped outside, expecting to hear of a stray beast caught in the fields. Instead, he found a crowd gathered, his parents supported by neighbors, their faces etched with grief. A boy ran up, his voice trembling. "Your brother's dead." They found his head at the village's edge. "Something ate him." The words hit Chut like a thunderclap, his world collapsing as he stood frozen, unable to comprehend the loss of his brother, his protector. Back at the scene, Bakba and the villagers searched for Den's body, following a trail of blood into the wilderness. Hours passed, but they found nothing, no bones, no flesh, only the lingering stench of death. Exhausted, they returned to the village, where Den's head was buried with a wooden body carved in its place, a grim substitute for closure. But the nightmare was far from over. Days later, another villager was found dead, his head severed, his body gone. Panic spread like wildfire. Doors were barred at night, and whispers of demons filled the air. When a third victim met the same fate, the village organized night patrols, armed with torches and makeshift weapons. For a brief moment, the deaths stopped, and hope flickered. But then, tragedy struck again, this time, a newlywed couple, their heads found in their own home, blood splattered across the walls. No tracks, no signs of beasts, only the work of something unholy. The village, gripped by terror, huddled together, some families merging households for safety. Yet the fear was suffocating. A group of bold young men, led by Lamb, a fearless giant who once wrestled a wild boar barehanded, decided to hunt the creature. Armed with clubs, knives, and dog's blood, a ward against spirits, they scoured the village. Lamb, confident in his strength, ventured alone, his polished staff in one hand, a three-pronged spear in the other. Near midnight, a rustling in the bushes stopped him. A boar? He thought, eager for a kill to feed the village. But as he approached, a putrid stench overwhelmed him, and two glowing red eyes locked onto his. A tiger? He gasped, turning to flee. But no mortal could outrun what came next. A black shadow lunged, its claws gleaming like scythes. Lamb, quick-witted, swung his staff, landing a blow that forced the creature back. It howled, a sound that shook the night, revealing its form, not a tiger, but a grotesque ape-like being with long limbs, sharp claws, and a face eerily human. Lamb thrust his spear, but the creature was too fast, its claw piercing his chest, ripping through flesh and bone. As he fell, it tore into his organs, devouring them with savage glee. By the time Backbaw and the others arrived, drawn by his scream, Lamb was a mangled heap, his body unrecognizable. The village's fear turned to rage, a collective fury against the monster that had stolen their kin. Among the crowd was Trong Thuan, his face unreadable. Silently, he slipped away, retreating to a hidden chamber beneath his home, a shrine not to gods, but to a demon. The graveyard was no ancestral tomb but a vault for his smuggled gold, guarded by a malevolent spirit he had summoned with the aid of a sinister sorcerer, a lie. The creature was meant to kill 49 souls, its power growing with each death, until it became an invincible guardian of his treasure. But Lamb's blow had torn the talisman controlling the demon, enraging it. Trong Thuan, sensing the village's unrest, ordered a lie to pause their plan, fearing discovery. Days passed without incident, but Trong Thuan grew restless. His gold was secure, but without the demon's protection, bandits could strike. In a chilling act of cruelty, he lured his servant, Jung, to the cellar under the pretense of moving valuables, only to push him into the demon's clutches. Days later, he repeated the act with another servant, feeding the creature's hunger to keep it sated. But the demon, strengthened by its kills, broke free of its bindings, roaming the village in search of prey. One night, it sensed two villagers approaching. As it prepared to strike, a burning arrow pierced its body, followed by a barrage of talisman-tipped arrows. The village's defenders, led by Backbaw and a mysterious ally, attacked with enchanted weapons, driving the creature back. It fled, wounded, toward the graveyard. A lie, deep in the tombs performing his dark rituals, sensed the disturbance and raced to Trong Thuan's home. They descended to the shrine, only to find it shattered, bones scattered across the floor. Before they could react, the demon attacked, tearing into a lie and devouring Trong Thuan alive. His wife, discovering the carnage, fled with her loyal servants, taking what gold she could carry. The demon pursued a lie, but a fiery talisman and a bolt of lightning reduced it to a smoldering heap. Backbaw's ally, Two-Man, a renowned exorcist from Chao Dak, had arrived just in time, summoned to end the terror. The village, freed from the demon's grip, mourned its losses but found solace in survival. The graveyard was cleansed, its curses lifted, and the 45 bodies found beneath were given proper burials. Trong Thuan's treachery was laid bare, a cautionary tale of greed and hubris. As dawn broke, Backbaw, now a guardian of the village's peace, reflected on the cost of their victory, vowing to protect his home from the shadows that lingered in the wilds. Epilogue. The rooster's crow heralded a new day, pulling Backbaw from his memories. He splashed cold rainwater on his face, washing away the weight of the past, and lit a cigarette, his gaze drifting toward Ong Kwok's home, where the recent buffalo slaughter had stirred old fears. Joining the villagers, he urged caution, sensing the echoes of that long-ago nightmare. As they carried the buffalo carcasses back, a familiar stench hung in the air, a warning that the past was never truly buried.